everybody and welcome to the channel. In today's video, we have esteemed astrologer Shu Yap presenting on assessing planetary strength in forecasting. As a reminder, we have a number of fantastic workshops, webinars and classes coming up this spring term. So if you'd like to learn more, please visit KeplerCollege.org. And lastly, we have a new sponsorship program where you are able to sponsor an individual student. So if you'd like to learn more about that, please see the link below this video in the description. And without further ado, let's get into the video.
And I just wanted to start today by just paying my respects to the country that I'm on, the Jaja Wurrung country, paying respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging. Also like to pay my respects to the lineage in which we come from, you know, all those that have come before us in sharing their knowledge and have risked their lives to give us the freedom to be able to do this today freely. So I'm Shu, like Callum said, and I would like to thank Kepler College for inviting me to offer this gift to the community to celebrate such a significant time. And when Laurie approached me about this theme of transition of power, I thought, oh, that's interesting. I thought this really reminded me of this kind of shifting of energy in terms of power. And that's why there's this, I'm not sure if you can see my screen. Let's see, winners and losers assessing planetary strength in forecasting. So it's a bit of a play on the theme of transition of power, because I do see that theme as being like a seesawing of up and downs, the expansion and the contraction, you know, the winning and losing of life. So I see this also in the way that planets continually move in and out of power, so affecting the relationship with other planets around them, as well as the relationship with the planets within your own natal chart. And that's essentially what we do as astrologers, is by assessing the strength of each planet at any one time. So today I'm going to take this inspiration and apply some traditional techniques and traditional theories on planetary assessments to the modern skies. And I'm particularly interested in studying the Pluto and Aquarius transit as the main study for this presentation, because it is a modern planet. So I thought it would be interesting to sort of combine the old with the new here. And I'll be specifically exploring the domicile and triplicity lords in this assessment of planetary strength. And although, you know, I'm going to be focusing on Pluto and Aquarius today, these techniques can be applied to any transit or any planetary movements. And we're going to be starting first by defining some of the significations of Pluto and Aquarius. And this won't be an exhaustive talk about, you know, what Pluto and Aquarius means. And I think, you know, my previous the previous speakers before me probably covered some ground there. But if you'd like to sort of hear my take on that, I do have a YouTube video that I recorded a discussion with the Melissa Lafara from Energetic Principles. And so you can catch me there if you wanted to hear more of the Pluto and Aquarius topic. But for today, I'd just like to, you know, start with a little bit of what I think the higher significance of Pluto and Aquarius means before we dive into the technical stuff. So here we go. So this is a man called Jean-Léopold Nicolas Frédéric Cuvier, and I hope the pronunciation's right for any French-speaking participants out there, or otherwise known as George Cuvier. And he was a natural history scientist, amongst other things. And at the age of 10, he discovered a book that inspired him to study natural history. And he became known as the father of paleontology. Now, he wasn't born with Pluto and Aquarius, but when he turned 10, Pluto moved into Aquarius. Okay, so he came up with this concept of extinction. So prior to this, nobody thought animals could be extinct. And the popular idea was that humans and animals gradually just evolved into beings, such as the work of Charles Darwin and the theory of evolution. But Cuvier was actually opposed to evolution. And he believed that major catastrophes occurred throughout history, which essentially wiped out entire populations of animals. So he used this theory to explain the different types of fossils that he found in different layers of the of Earth. And these views at the time were very contrasting to popular thought. So he was very much, I guess, considered a heretic. Now we fast forward to today and we see this is Graham Hancock. I'm sure everyone is aware of who he is. And he also wasn't born with Pluto and Aquarius, but he is now coming into very popular and controversial light now that Pluto is moving into Aquarius with his recent release of the Netflix docuseries, The Ancient Apocalypse. Now, Graham is not an archaeologist or historian, but he is an author, researcher, and former journalist, mainly focusing his work on ancient civilizations. In fact, he is one of the most hated persons to historians and archaeologists because he's considered to be somewhat of a pseudoscientist. His views are very controversial. And what links him to Cuvier, which I observed, was that they're both not just controversial, but they both cause massive outrage in the conventional system of thinking. They're being criticized for being nonconformist. They both believe that catastrophes, like major catastrophes, have wiped out and interrupted, well, for Cuvier, the animal species, but for Graham Hancock, the human species. And they're both interested in studying time and our evolution of time. So I thought that was a really interesting connection to this current zeitgeist happening right now. Graham really believes that what we know of our human evolution and our human history is not correct. And he has a lot of proof to back that research up. So I just think it was interesting that Pluto in Aquarius was a big factor in the time in which inspired Cuvier to firstly study natural history and for this Ancient Apocalypse series to be birthed, like right before that Pluto and Aquarius time, which is still moving into major controversy right now. And it continues to do so. So both men were essentially involved in unearthing new information about collective civilization. And their stories really highlight this Pluto and Aquarius theme, which to me is really about the evolution of life, the evolution of our civilization, of humanity, what it means to be human, and our sovereignty as human beings. And Pluto's influence also shows in the two gents here around the death and the destruction and the catastrophe involved in their major findings. You know, I think of Pluto as that tower card in the tarot, and essentially this is how they've applied their research. And the symbolism here is also seen in that underground nature of their work. Cuvier unburying fossils from animals, and Hancock essentially unearthing major cities that were underground. And the Aquarius theme here I see is the study of collective forms of living, and that it's also based so much around the concept of time and history, which is ruled by Saturn, the ruler of Aquarius, the traditional ruler of Aquarius. So if I had to distill a meaning for Pluto and Aquarius, it's at its most essential nature. I would say it's about redefining the mass, redefining a group of people, be it a community or a country or civilization. You know, it's about undergoing these paradigm shifts that are radically different to what's known. It's about questioning humanity at a very fundamental level. And it's about an evolutionary crisis that could lead to some kind of paradigm shift. And, you know, for example, we saw this in the past with Nicholas Copernicus and the discovery of the heliocentric model from the geocentric model. You know, that threw a massive spanner in the works for the entire society, and still does today as astrologers, to be honest. But it's really about also finding that technology upgrade as a response to some kind of evolutionary crisis. We saw this with the Industrial Revolution and the shift from artisanal making to mass production. And currently there has been some discoveries around vibrational technology, which is about to be open source. And if that is about to drop in this, over the next 20 years, we could see that completely replacing combustion engine work. And this is what's being discovered right now, that it could have been what the ancient Egyptians used to build the Great Pyramids. So I think the biggest lesson from Pluto, apart from the technology aspects of Pluto and Aquarius, but I think the biggest lessons of Pluto and Aquarius is that understanding that death is a necessary process for evolution. So to summarize the significations, these are my 4 key points, and you'll see why I'm summarizing significations here, because as we're moving into the more technical things, I'll just keep referring back to the significations of Pluto and Aquarius. So keep this in the back of your mind, that for the context of this talk, I would be referring to significations as being the massive upgrade of the evolution of our species, the regeneration of our physical, economic, our social structures, the discovery of new resources for our humanity, and that includes our tech upgrades. Also eliminating destructive patterns that exist in society right now, bringing up the shadows that we're dwelling on. So I just wanted to remind people that Pluto and Aquarius could mean lots of different things. This is one tangent that I'm taking today. And also it's important to think of your personal chart as well. And I think I caught the end of Marie's talk, that Pluto and Aquarius personally means something for you, depending on your house and the phase of Pluto as it's making from your date of birth. Okay. So let's now head into some of the more technical aspects of the talk. Right, so Saturn is the host of Pluto, the traditional host of Pluto, which I'll be focusing on between now and 2043. So our theory states that a planet hosting a sign will exert a strong influence over that part of the sky. And so for Pluto and Aquarius, Saturn is the host for the next 20 years. And Saturn will have some kind of power and influence over Pluto to be determined by the nature and condition of Saturn, which is what we'll look at today. So you can see that in this chart, we have the light colored gray as the signs in which Saturn will be moving through. The dark colors are the signs in which Saturn won't be moving through, because we've just passed it. Okay, now let's extend on this a little bit more. The orange here are Saturn's sign of fall and detriment, whilst that will essentially possibly signify times of greater challenges, whilst that aqua colored sign is the sign of Saturn's exaltation, possibly signifying some kind of elevation of the Saturnian principles. And unfortunately, Saturn has just finished 6 years of its being in its own domicile. So it won't be its strongest in the time that Pluto stays in Aquarius. And just to extend on this a little bit further, and drawing from the wisdom of the major essential dignities, we could build a little picture of Saturn's management over Aquarius over the next 20 years. So from 2032 to 2037, that chunk of orange there, this could be the major challenging time for Pluto and Aquarius when Saturn is in Cancer, maybe having to make the most unpopular Saturn decisions at the time to be able to bring about Pluto and Aquarius significations. We could get a little preview of these times by looking at that first little orange line where Saturn will be in Aries between 2026 and 2028. And lastly, at a big picture look, we could see an alleviation or an improvement of the principles of Pluto and Aquarius through Saturn being in Libra and being exalted there. So furthermore, you'll see that there will be signs in which Saturn will be in aversion to Aquarius, showing Saturn's inability to manage Aquarius. And I've marked this with a capital A on this table. So Saturn's just moved into a relationship of aversion with Aquarius, having moved into Pisces recently. And then Cancer will be the next time Saturn will be in aversion to Aquarius. So note that this could be one of the most challenging periods of time for Saturn's management of Aquarius. So Virgo, again, will be another sign of aversion. And for me, I think the signs of aversion may indicate times of greatest uncertainty, times of greatest stress and panic and fear for the people. So looking at, say, 2032 to 2034, when that Cancer period brings in two levels of debility for Pluto and Aquarius, one being Saturn in detriment, second Saturn being in aversion, I think this will be certainly a period of reckoning and a period to watch out for in this sort of 20-year period. So let's drill down a little bit further into the closer look of Pluto and Aquarius for this coming year. It's only 82. Yes?
Before you continue, for the audience, will you define aversion?
Yes, sorry about that. Aversion is when a sign a planet cannot see its own sign, and that's usually when it's in adjacent signs to the sign. So for Aquarius, the adjacent signs are Pisces and Aries, and also signs in which they are 150 degrees apart. So the Cancer and Virgo signs for Aquarius. Sorry about that. So moving on to the Triplicity Lords, which is what I'll be looking at using as a tool to study Pluto and Aquarius for 2023 and beyond. But it is only 82 days that Pluto will be in Aquarius this year, but this will give us a good little observation window for what's to come. And the main reference that I've used for the Triplicity Lords is Ben Dyke's translation of Dorotheus of Sidon, the Carmen Astrologicum, which places a lot of importance over the Triplicity Lords. He states that everything which is decided and indicated comes to be from the Lords of the Triplicities. And Dorotheus really placed a lot of importance over the Triplicity Lords and had some really great creative applications of this theory. And I really encourage you to study further into this book because it is just fascinating, like using Triplicity Lords over time, etc. But my thinking for this presentation and my little study of Pluto and Aquarius was to assess the movements of the Triplicity Lords over this 82-day period to see what current influences are affecting the sign of Aquarius. So if we base it on the fact that Dorotheus stated that everything is decided and indicated from these Triplicity Lords, surely that studying Saturn, Mercury, and Jupiter over this period of time might give us a little bit of an indication of the journey that we might be experiencing for this iteration of Pluto and Aquarius. And before we dive into this, I want to just review what Triplicity Lords do. So the Triplicity Lords, like any other lords in the essential dignities theory, have a specific set of functions. And these are the four major themes that are outlined in Carmen by Ben Dykes. So the first one being the concept of increase and decrease. So a Triplicity Lord will either increase or decrease the significations of the planet that it serves. So this is why we spent a bit of time on defining the significations of Pluto and Aquarius, because what it will do is that a Triplicity Lord, say in good condition, will help to increase these significations of Pluto and Aquarius. So if Pluto and Aquarius signifies, say, that massive step change in our evolution of humanity, then the strong triplicity lords will help to bring this idea to fruition, maybe by the wide acceptance by the people, or perhaps the ability for society to incorporate these changes into their lifestyles. So Ben Dyke says here that the first thing that triplicity lords do is to increase or decrease the basic condition of the significators topic in an ongoing way. So this can be both qualitative or quantitative, right? Now, the next thing that triplicity lords do is to protect and to preserve their topics and to bring stability as a result. So strong triplicity lords of Pluto and Aquarius could mean that change and the unearthing of new ideas or repressed ideas will emerge steadily over that time. If triplicity lords are weak, then perhaps we could see things like rising levels of uncertainty in the community in response to these changes, the undermining of the process of change, and so forth. So here we see how the function of the triplicity lords can protect and preserve the goals of Pluto and Aquarius. The next thing is this concept of assisting and supporting. Triplicity lords give support for the topic by actually granting the topic. So strong triplicity lords for Pluto and Aquarius might look like the ability for Pluto to change or materialize into our culture and society. It will actually make it happen. Whereas weak triplicity lord, based on this hypothesis, would be that maybe that change might be unwanted, the change that might be wanted or needed, but there could be maybe a little bit of struggle in actually making it happen. So we'll see whether that comes to fruition. And the last thing is the concept of presence or beneficial outcomes. So here, good triplicity lords show the presence of certain people and topics in the life with benefit, while bad triplicity lords show their absence. And this will go a long way in making things happen. So strong triplicity lords of Pluto and Aquarius might bring events to culture that will support the changes of Pluto and Aquarius. And at the same time, maybe those changes will be seen to be good or be fruitful or beneficial to society, right? So they're the four key things that the function of triplicity lords do. As you can see, it's quite nuanced in what they do. So coming back then to these triplicity lords, and these triplicity lords of Aquarius also rule, are also the same triplicity lords for all the air signs as well. But for this particular study, we're particularly looking at Aquarius. So what can Saturn, say, offer increased presence, protection to Pluto and Aquarius? So that could be Saturnian themes like infrastructure, tangible structures of like foundations, land, even the concept of practicality, rules, authorities, history, like supporting what the change is, ancient knowledge, time, resource management, organization. So all of those things are ways that Saturn can offer support and help. Mercury can do the same by offering things like information, data, communication, networks, contacts, connections, research, perhaps an emerging youth, technology, strong dialogues and debates, and studying and knowledge. Whilst Jupiter can offer support by wealth, investments, opportunities, the cohesion of the community, enthusiasm, a connection of beliefs and principles, the laws and morals, and possibly even spiritual and religion topics, wisdom, culture, and study. So if you think of how these triplicity lords can function and offer support when they're strong, it's through their own significations and gifts that they bring to the community. Okay, so let's look at the ingress chart of Pluto moving into Aquarius. So this chart is based on universal time, and we're interested here in looking at what triplicity lords look like at the moment that Pluto enters in Aquarius. This inception chart could essentially be a little microdose of the whole entire 82-day period that we're looking at. So Saturn is both the domicile lord and the triplicity lord of Aquarius. So it will play a very strong role in managing and protecting this sign. So currently Saturn is in Pisces. It's moved out of its own domicile, but it nevertheless has its own face. Like it's in its own decan, which is another rulership of essential dignity. And I think Kepler does have an essential dignity course for those who are interested in diving into this further. It's also fast in speed. And at this stage, Venus is also making a very wide separating sextile on the sinister side of Saturn. So this is doing a little bit to help boost the condition of Saturn a little bit. So therefore, I'd say that Saturn's condition is not strong, but he definitely does have some help. He has a little bit of face rulership to help him stay afloat. And he's being supported by a very powerful Venus in domicile. So from that domicile lord perspective of Saturn, it's relatively powerless because it is in aversion to Aquarius. So whilst it may want to help, it can't help directly. It has to do this maybe indirectly through its relationship to other planets, maybe through Venus currently, who has a square to Aquarius. So this possibly could be quite stressful or panic-inducing, maybe showing up blind spots on that level of that Saturnian tangible foundations and structure. This concept of we just don't know what we don't know might be very strong symbolism for that condition of Saturn right now. So it could show up maybe plans for changes to society is not something that might be well received, but maybe that Venus is bringing some kind of saving grace, maybe through a form of a powerful woman or reconciliation efforts, maybe through artistic or creative endeavors that might prove to be beneficial or fertile. I'm thinking of the artistic forms of artificial intelligence that's very strong right now. Maybe that is some kind of saving grace or getting in touch with the popular connection there. So from a triplicity lord perspective, Saturn's weakness here could suggest that the change or renewal aspect of Pluto and Aquarius will not be strongly supported by Saturn at this point in time. Maybe this shows a skepticism in the community, things like poor resource management, limited availability of land or poor foundations that may be preventing progress from happening, instability and uncertainty among the communities, and other such sort of Saturn-related issues. And the fact that Saturn is moving fast could sort of indicate that any support or sentiment for change and renewal could essentially, be happening quite quickly. Okay. Sorry, let me just. Okie dokie. So moving on to the next triplicity lord is Mercury. Mercury is very fast right now, but it is peregrine, which means it doesn't have any essential dignity. So it's considered to be quite weak. It's just about to make its evening heliacal rise within, I think, a few days of this ingress. So this is building up a strength in Mercury. And I would consider this Mercury to be essentially weak, but there's something brewing there behind the scenes. There's a sextile configuration to Aquarius, which could indicate that Mercury wants to offer support, but the quality of the help that it can offer is limited at this time. So again, we have another weak triplicity lord that won't be able to help bring through the materialization of Pluto and Aquarius goals. So this could show up with things like poor communication, the lack of understanding or information about some of these changes, technology troubles, privacy breaches, scandals, gossip, trickery, theft, and other sort of debilitated mercurial issues. Now, Jupiter in Aries is slightly different. It is the sign of its own triplicity, and it is fast. So here we can also see him looking at Aquarius by sextile and offering a connection of support to Pluto. So this is a strong and capable planet here, bringing a level of confidence to Pluto and Aquarius significations. So examples of this could look like maybe financial support or investments, giving life and opportunities to projects, raising the profile of such projects and ideas, or maybe bringing together of the people, companies, the investors, or maybe just having a level of enthusiasm to learn more about changes. Okay, so that's what the triplicity lords are looking at from that ingress chart perspective, right? So 1 week, 2 week and one fairly strong triplicity lord. But the thing is, planets are always constantly changing. And this is what the theme of my talk was about, this whole idea of winning and losing. You know, one planet moves into strength, another one loses out, but that planet that's losing out will eventually come back into strength and knocking off that winner at that time. So this is a bit of an outlook over the next 82 days of Pluto being in Aquarius. What we will see during this period of time is that Saturn will slow down dramatically, especially in June when it prepares to stop and turn retrograde. This will also further decrease and destabilize these Saturnian significations of Pluto in Aquarius. Right? Mercury will move out of combustion into the evening heliacal rise, being birthed into the evening skies. And then in April, it will turn retrograde, do a bit of a dip. In May, it will move direct again. Then it will gain speed right at the very end when Pluto moves out of Aquarius. So all the while from Aries, where it's peregrine, to Taurus, while it's in its own decan and having its own term rulership at certain times. And then Gemini, where it will move into its own domicile lord right at the end of Pluto and Aquarius. So this up and down nature of Mercury, I think, is one to watch for, I think, an indication of the grassroots activation of the people whilst Pluto is in Aquarius. Like, what are the people thinking? What are the collective sentiments of the people? Whether they offer support, i.e. when Mercury picks up dignity, or whether they show skepticism of ideas being proposed and discussed, which is when essentially Mercury loses dignity. And this will be kind of the up and down nature week to week by what the people are thinking, in my opinion. So this speed as well of Mercury could show that pace and intensity in which support or opposition could be shown in the collective. And I think that the heliacal rise, which is about to happen, I think this week, of Mercury, could be times of, say, important announcements or realizations about the Pluto and Aquarius journey that we're about to embark on. So I also believe that when Mercury makes an interior cazimi on the 2nd of May, this could be another interesting unfoldment of Pluto and Aquarius. In terms of maybe initiating something that might help to materialize some of these significations. Now, Jupiter remains fast throughout its whole journey of Pluto and Aquarius, and it will lose dignity in May when it sort of starts to move out of its triplicity rulership. And like Saturn, Jupiter's declining strength, I think, will also impact some of these Pluto in Aquarius significations and its ability to manifest them. So in summary, I think it looks like all three triplicity lords will be losing power to protect Pluto and Aquarius. And although Mercury moves into strength, it almost is a little bit too late. Like Pluto will shift back into Capricorn the next day. And it looks like May will be the month to really watch out for. There are signs of difficulties emerging with all three triplicity lords being more stressed. And we can now then zone in on that time, looking at what transit activations are happening at that time when the weakening of triplicity lords and their stories of that could be activated. So let's have a look at some major transit activity of that time. So here I've just sort of picked out, the key ones, and they're pretty big, these potential events that are pretty potent that are happening that could sort of activate and reinforce the story of the declining health of the triplicity lords. So here we see, we've got that Pluto stationing retrograde, we've got Scorpio having a lunar eclipse, as well as an opposition from Mars to Pluto, which will also tie in that square to Jupiter. So massive activation of this story. Maybe events around that time could really be telling in terms of bringing up an obvious need for change and reform of what we're currently going through. Possibly upheaval, civil unrest, uncertainty could be on the cards. But at the same time, new opportunities being unearthed by technological advancements, patents and ideas. Maybe these things could be these transits could be the impetus for bringing about events that can really push Pluto's need for change and transformation here. Okay. Right, so I'm wanting to then further extend this now, circling back to the Saturn table that we had of Saturn being in domicile. So understanding that Saturn is also the triplicity lord, let's look at how we can overlay Jupiter's sign at the same time over this long-term period to fine-tune that forecasting. So just to explain, that first column shows Saturn's signs over the next 20 years. The orange lines are Saturn's sign of debility. The green line shows Saturn's signs of strength. Well, one sign anyway. I've also underlined now Saturn's signs of triplicity. So that's what the underline means in that first column. So, and then again, the sign of aversion. And I've just noticed I've forgotten to put a sign of aversion, the A symbol next to Aries. So apologies for that, but there should be an A next to Aries to indicate. Oh, no, I'm not. Sorry. I take that back. The other sign of aversion was Capricorn, which is not in this table. The third column here shows Jupiter's sign over the next 20 years in correspondence to the Saturn signs. So here the red text shows Jupiter's signs of debility. The green shows Jupiter's signs of dignity, and the bold shows the signs of Jupiter's triplicity rulership. So we're adding in all these layers of dignity to kind of see what story it can tell. Now, for obvious reasons, I've left Mercury out of this table because my screen is not big enough. And this is where you would then hone in on a specific period of time if you want to study what Mercury is doing, which we'll go into in a minute. But at least this table can give us a glance at 20 years of the domicile and triplicity lords of at least two of the lords of Aquarius. And then we can add in Mercury on closer inspection at a specific time. So one thing I think that stands out to me, and you might have your own opinions, is that that moment in time when Saturn is in Cancer, we also see at the same time Jupiter will be in its detriment in Capricorn, and Saturn will be in aversion to Aquarius. I think this is a definite red flag for the whole 20-year stage, and this will be around 2032 will be that first sign of that. At the same time, you can look up your ephemeris. Mercury during that period will be moving from the signs of Leo to Sagittarius. So we'll be moving in and out of dignity. So one could assume that this could be a significant time for human evolution, as these important stakeholders for this part of the sky are essentially under stress. And another thing that stood out to me is the, later on between 2039, 2041, I think this shows some promising symbolism there. Saturn will be exalted during this time. Jupiter will also move into Libra, which it has triplicity rulership for. And it will also be another Jupiter-Saturn grand conjunction. So it will essentially be finishing up this grand conjunction that happened on the same degree of the Pluto ingress. And we're going to be seeing a fruition of that story and possibly some kind of elevation of the journey that's taken place. And at the same time, if you look at your ephemeris, Mercury will also be in Libra. So all three triplicity lords will be coming together in Libra. To me, it is showing this sort of coming together of all the agendas to really support that Pluto and Aquarius significations. Okay, so I thought that looks like a very promising end to the not quite at the end, but close to the end of Pluto in Aquarius, although we'll have to wait 20 years to see that. So that will be a very interesting time. And interestingly, I think there is, from what I've noticed, there seems to be a bit of a connection with these grand conjunctions and Pluto moving into Aquarius in terms of the nature of the technologies that are being explored. So like I mentioned before, there is this new patent that's about to be, I think it's about to be open source, around vibration technology, where things can actually be moved and shifted based on the sharing of the same resonance of that item, which seems really weird to us because that's not how the way our technology journey has come by. It's essentially come by being moved by force, a very Mars way. But this new technology is like a very Venusian way. It's about attracting a certain resonance and vibration of two parallel objects and moving things that way. And it's considered to be, a hypothesis is that that's how the ancient Egyptians moved these big boulders to build the pyramids. So we're seeing that Pluto the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction in air signs, signifying possibly technologies to do with air, like to do with vibration, resonance, the internet, like things that we can't see, things that are floating around in the air. Previous times when the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction happened to be in Earth signs, we saw Pluto and Aquarius technologies being around coal, like, mining, like using resources from the Earth and applying that to technology. The time before that, in the 1500s, when Pluto was in Aquarius and the great conjunctions were in the water element, we saw massive advancements in water mills. So yeah, it's not a conclusive study, but I just noticed that, the technology aspects of Pluto and Aquarius seem to mimic the grand conjunction elements that we're in. And, as astrologers, that totally makes sense. Okay, so what I wanted to, I guess, show you for a little bit of homework, if you're interested, in sort of applying these concepts to anything that in your chart or any moment in time, is by assessing the domicile and triplicity lords to essentially anything. So not just Pluto and Aquarius. I've just used that as my study for today, but if the domicile lord shows the major goals and intentions of a planet that it rules, then the triplicity lords would essentially indicate, say, how likely these goals and intentions could manifest themselves. And this is based on Carmen, our ancient knowledge, what all the ancient astrologers before us said. So, it would be good to test them out in your own chart and your clients. So what I would suggest to do is create scenarios like this table would indicates, where you're comparing strong domicile lords and weak domicile lords with scenarios for strong triplicity lords and weak triplicity lords. And so consider various points in your life as well where these lords may undergo significant shifts. And if you're doing a lifetime study, maybe you might want to look at the secondary progressions to see where these changing levels of power and strength are moving in and out. Maybe it's Saturn moving into retrograde, or Jupiter making a heliacal rise by secondary progressions, or something like that. Okay, so you're applying everything that you know at this current stage in time to look at these changing levels of power. Okay, and sort of try and imagine what these changing levels of power might have on your level of psychology, your emotions, and your physical lifestyle. Okay, so that could be a little bit of homework for you. I've just sketched up a little example here for Pluto and Aquarius, and this is the theme of Pluto and Aquarius based on, say, human evolution. But you may want to create a table of scenarios for, say, Pluto and Aquarius based on technology advancements. So here I've written, say, Pluto having a strong domicile lord with strong triplicity lords, of being a scenario of maybe significant changes to humanity that create better opportunities for improved lifestyle. Strong ability for these changes to be rolled out through new discoveries, new technology advancements, and the wide acceptance by the community. So this is like the best scenario, that 2039 scenario, okay? But at the other end, if we have a weak domicile lord and weak triplicity lord for Pluto and Aquarius, we could see massive disruption to society with changes that could be challenging or cause harm. We may have wide-scale skepticism and resistance of new ideas being proposed, a period of destruction, a breakdown, maybe corruption of these effective changes can be rolled out. So benefits to the community are difficult to see. Okay, then we have, I guess, middling scenarios where a weak domicile lord combined with strong triplicity lords may look like changes to humanity that could be challenging, but there may be opportunities to implement these new ideas and technologies with community support, especially if these benefits can be perceived or can be achieved on that individual level. If we have a strong domicile lord and weak triplicity lords, this could be that middling scenario where positive changes to humanities are being proposed, but there could be challenges in implementing these ideas and technologies, maybe through, whatever those triplicity lords are indicating, say weak community support, weak ideas or understanding, the lack of investments, lack of land, etc. So I invite you to draw up your table of scenarios and see what you come up with, not just with Pluto and Aquarius, but just as a template for assessing any particular life topic or signification. So this is the end of my presentation. These are my contact details if you'd like to get in touch. I'm happy to share the slides. I've noticed there's been some, I think, glances of like, are these slides available? So perhaps email me and I can have the slides sent to you, or maybe we can arrange something with Kepler. And yeah, I think we've got 12 minutes for questions if there are any.
If you send me the slides, Shu, I'll make sure we're going to get them out to the registrants.
Sure. Not a problem.
Thank you, Shu, for such a brilliantly insightful presentation. Absolutely wonderful. So we do have a few questions here. The first one I'm going to pick here is, do we only look at the natal chart, which is more static, or to secondary progressions or solar arc progression planets when doing this homework?
I'd look at everything. I'd have a question and intention in mind first. Kind of treat it like a horror investigation, I would say. If you have a question about relationships, maybe you might want to do a study on the significator of your 7th house and look at what that's doing in your natal chart, create some scenarios for the current moment or for the lifetime study. Yeah, it's a mine hole. It'll take you forever to do. Yeah, but yeah, put aside a few hours or days.
I love the homework end of the presentation. I'm going to do my homework too.
Can you tell I'm very Saturnian?
Wonderful, wonderful. So any insight into how to navigate the back and forth between Pluto dipping into Aquarius and Capricorn over the next year or so?
I think the fact that we know this, and we know that there are winners and losers, ups and downs, when things happen, don't buy into them too much. It's a symbology, it's an omen that's speaking out to the symbology in the cosmos. So we know that bigger picture, like what's happening, like we've defined in your mind, define the significations for Pluto and Aquarius and stay on that path. There will be ups and downs on that path, but you've got to, keep that path there and in your heart, and just, ride your own story.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I think this was a question from earlier on. What is the sinister side of Saturn? What are alliteration?
Okay. So that's sinister. So this comes into like when planets are evening stars or morning stars. So Sinus is on the left as evening stars, and Dexter's on the right as morning stars. So that would come into, I think, aspect theory, which I'm sure would be covered in that. I'm sure that would be covered in the Kepler courses. So check out the Kepler program for that.
Wonderful. And going back to your workshop, you've been doing the Fredoria workshop, and do you want to maybe explain a bit more about that? I think we're going to put the link, or I think we have already put the link in the description in the chat, but we're looking forward to that workshop. Be fantastic. Yeah,
that's right, the Fredoria. And I've noticed Ona Dursa's online too, who's also one of my heroes with Fredoria. So I do feel like I'm very humbled in being able to teach Fredoria, but it's definitely something that I use. It's the main technique actually that I use in life and for my clients. And it really is looking at dividing the life into planetary periods of pairs of planets and pulling those planets apart at that certain time in life to really extrapolate all the symbolism in your life at that certain time. And it's a very simple technique, but it's very sophisticated and can be quite complex. So yeah, I'm looking forward to teaching. It's a 2-week workshop, I think, to be run in May, I think. When unless an apocalypse happens, I'll be here.
Actually, June 3rd.
Oh, June. Oh, good. We're safe. Okay.
The 3rd and the 10th.
Yeah, when Mercury moves into Gemini, let's plan it for that.
Wonderful. I also want to thank Ona as well. He was my teacher for the particular technique. So thank you, Ona, if you're still here. Yeah, and thank you, everybody. If you stayed with us for the full 4 hours, there. Cheers to you for the stamina. And again, just to reiterate, these recordings will be up on our YouTube channel. So again, if you go to youtube.com, just type in KeplerCollege. And I hope to get those up in the next couple of days and to get them edited and uploaded for everybody to watch. So again, thank you all so much for joining us today. It's been an absolutely wonderful day, and we want to thank Ona, we want to thank Ray, Shu and Marie, and for such wonderful presentations. So thank you so much. Oh, Ona is back. Hello.
Hello.
Here I am. Great presentations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ona. I must admit, I did feel a bit nervous with you in the room, but because I do really highly respect your work. So thank you.
Thank you all so much. So again, thank you everyone for coming today. And again, spring semester term is coming up, so go to KeplerCollege.org to find out more. And we hope to see you all soon. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.